All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Sandy Springs Initiative Interest and Informational Meeting. We want to go ahead and get started with a word of prayer. And I'll ask Quay, since you're on up here, if you want to pray for us, my brother.
All right, God, Father in heaven, thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for the privilege of being able to pray to you, God. I just thank you for this group of people gathered just for a united purpose to see you do a great thing with the Sandy Springs Initiative and the Path. God, I pray that any questions can be answered, that people can get the information they need, and that we can move forward in a way that we can see a dynamic ministry develop and a dynamic ministry continue to grow here. Please guide these leaders. Please protect them, God. Please give them the wisdom and the courage and the patience that we'll need to see you do amazing things here. I love you so much. I ask all this in the name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you all again for being here. We wanted this to be a time to catch everybody up to speed as to where we are in this process. We wanted as many people as possible to have access to this meeting, not only those who are interested or have committed to going, but also the Path Church, those who are right now staying and want to support. That's why also we're recording it. We have a live stream right now on YouTube that will share the link out to everybody so they can hear just where we are now. What we want to do is provide opportunities just to answer all the questions that you may have as best to our ability. And so please go ahead and we have the Slido screen up there, Slido slide. So this is your way to ask questions. We're asking that those who may be watching on YouTube use Slido as well. All right, there we go. If you go to Slido, we'll just take a few seconds. Go ahead and that'll be the easiest way that we can get your questions as you think about them, and then we'll have whatever questions we haven't answered by the end, we'll go ahead and answer them, and then we'll just do any more Q&A that we may have, okay? Slido.com, for those of you who are on YouTube, the code is 1416649, okay? If you have any problem using that, please let us know. We'll help you out. All right, so this is an exciting meeting for us because we are literally seeing our vision come to life. Back in 2018, we came together as a church and we said this is what we're going to be about, creating churches that mobilize the next generation. And so it's always encouraging to see when there is progress in that vein, and we're seeing it happening right before us. Like I shared about in my sermon today, it is happening right here, right now, and the church is being mobilized. And that's, one of the things we talked about, that a church launch, when we start new churches, not only does it help mobilize those who are going, but it helps mobilize those who are staying as well, and it helps our younger Christians to get an opportunity to mature and to serve. What I do want to make sure that that we know and are aware of is that this is the first time we've launched a church in this way. So we have started different ministries over the years, from Bermuda to Stone Mountain, all types of mission groups and campuses or ministries, but this is going to be its own entity, right? And we're going through a process, trying to do the best we can, learning along the way, but we've also been able to hire Marcos Mercado. The Mercados are here. They have experience in church planting, and he is over our church planting initiatives here at the church as an on-staff member of the church. So he's able to bring in a bunch of expertise to help us in this process. But it has been and it will continue to be a learning process for everyone, okay? So that means that we all have to have a lot of grace with one another and stay very flexible in this process, okay? Number one, along with that, we want to make sure that everybody knows that we are launching a church. We are not splitting, Okay, words do matter, vocabulary matters, and a split can often have a negative connotation to it, and that's not what's happening. We are equipping Christians to go and to serve specifically in another part of this city, and so we are creating a church. We are launching a church, so we want to make sure we use it in that way. We do the same thing when we're launching out new small groups, new mission groups, like making sure that we keep it in those terms so Satan won't get in there in that way. And then before I hand things over to Jazz, what is success for us? I think that's a very important question that we talk through. And really, our goal, number one, is to, of course, glorify God, but we want to do that by staying unified relationally as we go through this process. We want to, if we can remain friends, brothers and sisters in Christ, and remain unified relationally as leaders, then that would be a success in and of itself. Why? Because when a group of people are united and then we're working collaboratively to help more and more people to know Jesus, God just gets glorified through that. I've always said he blesses humility and unity. He always blesses humility and unity. So want to remain united relationally and collaborate to help as many people as possible make it to heaven, and that is success. There's no quotas. There's no deadlines. There's no, this church got to be this big by this time or had to start a new church. No. We know with disciples going to love people, serve people, that we're going to make disciples. We're going to love God. So we know that's going to happen, and that is success to us. I hand things over to Jazz.
Thank you, Angel. So at this time, I want to take a moment for us to just really level set. We've been in different aspects of the conversation. For those of you that were with us on the April 7th meeting, we were able to talk about why Sandy Springs and why we're embarking on this journey. Julius, you can go to the next slide. And so for us, because many of us may not have been in certain conversations or may not have been a part of some of the initial meetings, I want to take this moment to, next slide, Julius, take this moment to really just bring us all up to speed to where we are. And so over the last almost 18 months, mobilizing the next generation and planting a church was something that we've been excited about doing and thinking about what does it mean to actually do that in practice, in real life. And so in October, or before October, Dr. Jackson and myself began meeting with the staff and presenting the ideas that we had. And at that particular point in time, we did not know what we didn't know. And so we were presenting ideals, but we didn't know what questions to ask. We didn't know how to answer certain questions. And so since that time, we have been spending a lot of time learning from other people who have planted churches, Marcos, as well as people that we've been able to build relationships with. And so in that time, we've also been able to clarify why we want to do this, why we want to go to Sandy Springs, what we would like for it to look like. And so that is where we are right now. Been praying, learning, been in Sandy Springs, evaluating the landscape. We've been learning about the culture of Sandy Springs, and specifically where we're going is North Sandy Springs. And so in this city, when you hear Sandy Springs, oftentimes you may think about Alpharetta and South Sandy Springs, which are a little more affluent. But North Sandy Springs is a tract between there that does not necessarily live with the same means. And so the people that are a part of North Sandy Springs have some of the issues that people here in Adamsville have. They have some of the housing insecurities. They have some of the challenges with food insecurities. And they are also facing the issues that people down here in the city face. And so we want to be able to deal with and address some of those issues as they've come about. We've been able to go to city council meetings. We've been able to learn through engaging our city council members as well as people in the community what the needs are. And so that is where we've been. We've been doing a lot of recon work. We've been learning a lot about the landscape and taking time to really dig in and build meaningful relationships before we even mobilize people into the area. Because one thing that we are passionate about, one of the things that we've seen through what we learned from Angel and Mike and everyone as we've gone into school and church partnerships, and we've gone into communities, we don't want to feel like we are the answer. We are a part of the answer, And we believe that God gives us the ability to bring the greatest answer. However, there are people that have already been doing the work. There are people that already know the landscape. There are people that already have been investing in the community. And I think that it's really disrespectful if we come in saying, we're here to solve all of your problems. No, we're here to collaborate. We're here to be partners. We're here to love you and to help you and to grow in that relationship. So that is where we have been. And really, we've been able to dig in and learn. Julie, you can go to the next slide. We've been able to learn about what God may want us to do there. We believe that God has placed on our heart an opportunity through these open doors to really help people towards healing, wholeness, and holiness. That is something that we've been saying repeatedly as we have conversations: healing, wholeness, and holiness. Because people have actual, like, physical needs and spiritual needs. And so what we see in Jesus and in the scriptures, that Jesus helped heal the blind, feed the hungry, and help them with the hereafter. And so we want to make sure that we're emulating that as well. And just, as I said earlier, opportunity to engage in meaningful partnerships. And so as we thought about where to plant, Sandy Springs was a meaningful place for several reasons. So I'm turning it over to Ed to talk about that.
Appreciate it, Jazz. So yeah, when all this started, we're just trying to figure out geographically what would be the best place for the audience that we thought we were going to capture. And so I just, me being the type A guy, just look at the map and see what's center. And what was center was Sandy Springs. Didn't have any idea about it. My wife and family, we go there a lot and hang out. And then Jazz had recently moved there, and he said, hey, thinking about places to meet, you may want to think about Sandy Springs Middle School. I'm like, why Sandy Springs Middle School? What's going on there? What makes that so special? Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah, there we go. So I was like, what's happening there? He was like, oh, our brother there, Mike Brooks, has already started a mentorship program. I'm like, well, okay, I didn't know that. So then I drive through Sandy Springs, see the things that Jazz talked about. It looks very different than the other part of Sandy Springs where I usually go. And so I went and hung out with Brooks, and man, he had already started investing in 6th and 7th grade young men on how to build character. And then we started to meet with the principal. And Miss Woodruff had an incredible heart, open arms, what we call, or what the gospel calls, a person of peace. And when she opened her doors and we had a conversation and we were going through all the how we can help, how we can serve, she said, listen, Dr. Jackson, I do have a lot of resources that I can kind of, leverage my families toward. She took off her lanyard, she took off her identity badge, school badge, and said, but what this school really needs is what you guys are bringing, which is the church. She told me that 90% of her students and family are unchurched. And I was blown away. I was expecting to hear 30 or 40%. But 90%. I said, Ms. Woodruff, are you sure? She says, I assure you, 90% of these students and families have not been exposed to religion. She has been creating the environment for us to come into. So Mike Brooks had to leave and go to another school because of the housing issues. When you can't afford housing, families have to leave. That means the kids leave. When the kids leave, the enrollment goes down. When the enrollment goes down, people get fired. Or transitioned to another location. So that's what happened to Brooks. So we're like, what we're going to do with Gentlemen's Elite? We prayed about it. We had to be patient with it. God brought a man from Panama City, Milton, Florida, outside of Panama City, Florida, who has a heart for children by the name of Morris Smith. Morris was trying to figure out his life. He's had some issues, run-ins with the law. He was trying to make a buck. He was a truck driver making 6 figures, and truck driving industry was a little down. So he lost his gig, trying to find a gig. He said, man, I've done this school bookkeeping before. Let me just try. Wasn't getting any job offers. He submitted 40 applications. he submitted this one application to Sandy Springs Middle School to be the bookkeeper, and in 12 hours, he got a response. No responses for 40, 12 hours for this one. And he looked at it as, God has finally told me where he wants me to plant roots. Because the other side of this guy's story is he was a nonprofit president for a youth and development program in Florida. God had been moving the pieces in place to set Sandy Springs Initiative, whatever he's doing, it's bigger than even what we're trying to do, to bring Mr. Smith in place, who has the expertise on what we're trying to do and partner with Gentlemen's Elite, right there in Sandy Springs. And Ms. Woodruff told him, you don't have to invest always in your neighborhood because he lives outside. He says, invest where you currently are right now. And he took that as time to plant my boots down here. He told me on Thursday, Dr. Jackson, I'm ready to get to work. I just need to connect with your people and what you're trying to do, but I know how to help mobilize these young people. So it was clear our why to go to Sandy Springs. Our city councilwoman, Dr. Melanie Kelly, who we've been having great talks with, she sent us a text message out of the blue. Didn't ask for it, nothing. She sent it to me in jazz. And I don't know if you can see, but it's a very nice rendition, if I may say, of Sandy Springs, Georgia. It's like the inverse of Florida, Mike. Flip the other way. And at the bottom left-hand side, this is from a 6th, 7th grader, a middle schooler. It says, things to add to Sandy Springs to improve it. Churches. And in some of the writing there, it talks about churches can be used for more than just meeting there for on Sunday morning. It can be used for parties and many other things. This is a 6th and a 7th grader that we have no contact with, but they are communicating what they need to improve their community is a church that invests in the community, which we know how to do from our foundation here at The Path. And so that is our why. That is why Sandy Springs. So I'm going to throw it back to Jazz, and he'll continue to talk about our culture.
So the question is how? You know, many of us have had the conversation about why. And I think it's important for us to be ingrained in the why because that's what drives us. Following Jesus and helping people. If we can love God, love people, we're doing exactly what we need to do. And so when we talk about the how, logistically, you know, one of the things we've talked about from the beginning is in the Bible we see that there were multiple letters to Corinth, there was a letter to Ephesians, there was a letter to the Thessalonians, and it was important for their issues to be addressed because they had some of the same issues and some different issues. And so for us, one of the reasons we wanted to set out to launch this church and be a church entity in and of ourselves is because we wanted to leverage the opportunity to have a bespoke experience for the people that we serve, to be able to lean into really fixating on what do these people need in this community. One of the other realities is that when it comes to church planting, in the church planting world, we're able to leverage newness in a way that adds to our financial stability and solvency. And so when we're able to do something new, so to speak, people get behind it. There are several people that have already communicated with Dr. Jackson and myself. Let us know when you get a link so we can give. And there's something that's important about being able to leverage that so that we can have significant runway moving forward in our financial endeavors. We have secured our 501c3 status. And so as a church, we are now 501c3 official. So we can clap for that because that was a lot of work. And I want to communicate that there is a lot of stuff that goes into building, maintaining, running a church. If it was just about coming together on Sunday, that would be the easy part. But we live in the United States of America, where we have responsibilities, we have things that we have to lean into legally. And so those are a lot of the things we've also been working on in this time, is making sure we have the legal paperwork and things situated. And so I just want to thank everybody that has been a part of that. We've been leaning into people with various expertise and looking at the contracts that we sign, looking at the relationships that we build. And so I'm grateful that we've been able to do that. And so we've been saying Sandy Springs Initiative. That is the incorporated name. That is not the name of the church. We will have a church name. So you will not be inviting people to the Sandy Springs Initiative. That is in the works. And so we will be doing business as whatever the church name is. We've been praying and working through the cultural elements that we want to embody. And so the name of the church will be a part of that. And so we'll be continuing to have conversations. And we're working with a brand strategist right now to navigate that aspect of this process. Now, we also want to be able to be creative. One of the things that I'm grateful for is that our brother Jared Turner, as well as myself, our professions are resource development. Jared is more seasoned in it than I, but between the two of us, we have been able to leverage some very meaningful relationships with very deep pockets. And that also leads to a vast network. One of the things that I've learned from Mike and Angel over the years is how important it is to leverage your network. Angel is not just the pastor. And so seeing him, I've been able to learn so much about what it means to be in different circles in order to build God's kingdom. And so we're excited about that because nonprofit development means you know how to ask for money. And so that is where we are. And then one of the things that as we go further into the how, is we have developed what we have called our culture code. Julie, you can go to the next step. And so the culture code is, what are these 5 things? This is not necessarily our core values. We want to work with everybody who is going on this journey with us to develop our core values as we may understand them here at the Path. But the culture code is really, these are the guideposts and the guide rails that I believe God has placed on our hearts to be a part of the Sandy Springs Initiative. And so, Ed, you want to talk about this first couple?
All right, so obviously we can get real deep in the weeds here. We're open for questions, and as we go along to be able to talk through this in detail. But in brief, the first one is rest and Sabbath. Rest and Sabbath. So we know what God calls us to do. That's what God did. First part of the creation. Actually, the center point of Genesis chapter 1, the focal point is God telling us to rest in a season. So that is clearly what God is asking us to do. Now, rest and Sabbath is not something you do. It is a way of being. It is a way of being. So it is going to take some time to be able to work through the busyness of our schedules to be able to embrace this, but we are wholeheartedly convicted to doing that. As I've been on this journey for 6 years trying to figure out what this looks like in my life. So a practical that we can give is we would encourage everybody to take 3 to 6 hours to start off with a week and just chill. Do what brings you delight. Do what brings you joy. It don't mean you got to lay in the bed all day. It don't mean you got to cut the lights off and don't do nothing, can't drive. That's. So that is one of the practicals, right? And so if you look at the culture that this comes out of, you really are supposed to spend a 24-hour period doing that. It is going to take time to work that muscle. I have not figured out how to do it perfectly as well. And so one of the other practicals is we don't want to create a culture where we're looking at people saying, well, hey, you ain't Sabbath, right? That's the legalistic mindset. If you're there already, we're in the wrong spot. You're in the wrong spot. So it's about slowing down to be with God, doing things that bring you delight. The second one talks about cultural context and the Eastern perspective of the Scriptures, the Jewish perspective of the Scriptures. We have started that here with Marty Solomon and some of his teachings, and we have dove a little bit deeper in some other authors. Angel actually showed a video. One of my favorite guys that I like to learn from is Rabbi David Foreman. And it's a very incredible, eye-opening experience into the Scriptures that paints a whole different picture that we have yet to encounter, so we want to lean into that. The other thing is to understand that Brother Vic here just got his seminary degree. And so he has decided to partner with God to be able to help people grow in their relationships through his academic pursuits. And so that will give us more insights into the Scriptures. It's all about deepening our relationship with God. The third one I'll share, then I'll toss it over to Jazz, is sharing the gospel and sharing our life. As many of you know, this is my favorite scripture in the Bible. It speaks to what we do here. It speaks to how we should help people. It speaks to the authenticity of really sharing the gospel with someone and not making it about a number of how many people you baptize and so forth and so on. It's truly about helping people find Jesus through letting them know you were broken, you're still broken, and we're going to be broken together, but we got somebody who can fix us, and that's Jesus.
So the last two are near and dear to my heart, well, all of them, but financial, mental, emotional, and relational stewardship. What does that mean? What does it mean to steward something? It means to pay careful attention to it, to treat it well, to allow it to grow. I think about what does it mean for us? We get financial stewardship to a degree, but one of the things I'm excited about is, Ricardo and I have had so many ideation sessions where we just talk about what would it look like for people to steward their money well, and for us to be able to teach that. And not only for us to be able to teach it for church people, but what does it mean for us to transition out of this just being for the church? What does it mean to transition this into teaching it into a community? What does it mean to walk with people and steward your relationship with people in a way that allows them to see Jesus working through us in us embracing our financial stability, our mental stability? Y'all have heard me say it before. I am not a therapist. I will point you to a therapist while we talk about Jesus. But mentally, in the communities we're entering into, there's conversations that need to be had about mental health, emotional well-being. How do you deal with your emotions? I remember years ago, me and Taylor laugh about, I had a crayon box of 8 emotions: happy, sad, mad, and I don't know what the rest were because they were limited. Angel taught me sad when my grandfather died 10 years ago. And so I have learned through my journey, it's important for us to be able to steward our emotions well. And then relational stewardship. How do we maintain, develop, grow, and navigate relationships as busy adults? And so that's really important for us because to whom much is given, much is required. Then extreme generosity. We believe that whatever God has given us is an opportunity for us to give to someone else. I think that when we think about generosity is what does it mean to give above and beyond? And I think that we have seen that over and over again in the life of this church is we're extremely generous with our time. We're extremely generous with our resources. We're extremely generous with our talent. And so again, how do we take that and continue to communicate that to the community around us so that we can build a meaningful community? And one of the things that we talk about often is how can we be strategic? And I love having guys like Dr. Jones and Jared because they're dreamers just like us. And we talked about what does it look like to have
So one thing that I do want to kind of talk about as we transition to our partnership. So our leadership team at Sandy Springs Initiative, we all, came together to talk about the partnership, which we'll do, but I do want to make an acknowledgement of who is on that leadership team. Angel alluded to it, and some of the roles and responsibilities. So obviously my wife, Tasha, she's our event planning coordinator, experience expert, so that'll be how she will lean in to helping us. And then we have Brother Vic here, who will be a teaching pastor, knowing all things academic Bible. Well, all right. And then his incredible wife, Taylor, who is the child whisperer. So she'll be helping facilitate the experience of our next generation of the kids. And then we have Russell and Jasmine Brown, who will be helping with our mission group development and our men's and women's ministry, just chipping in wherever there's a helping hand. And then I, in this season, will be the lead pastor. I hate saying it, but I've been told I got to say it. So, yes, that's who I am. So let's move on. All right, moving on, as I said. So, Mike and Angel said, hey, how do you guys want us to help you? Let us know. We are here to serve you and do whatever, we can do for you all. And so we came together, sat down, had a conversation, and was like, hey, this is how we can come together. This is what the team decided to do. So before I get into the nitty-gritty details of that, I want Angel to come up and give the path side of the partnership.
Yes. Thank you, Pastor Jackson. We, one of the biggest transitions is that the Sandy Springs Initiative is now transitioning from being under the leadership and authority of the spiritual authority of the Path Church and the elders to being its own entity. So we're transitioning from that dynamic to a partnership, right? And we for us as at the Path, we wanted to make sure that is a partnership and with the spirit of, like we talked about before, of unity and collaboration. Ultimately, what we would like to see is this is, one of many churches that we start, right? So if we can do this one well and we can collaborate to help more people, then we can come together possibly and start another church. And maybe later on start another church. So our goal is to have a network of churches that are striving to make disciples around the city. And so, in order to do that, the spirit that, for us that's really important is have that spirit of unity, of collaboration, relational unity, mutual respect, and also making sure that those churches that we partner with have sound doctrine, especially and specifically when it comes to the doctrine of salvation. There's a lot of different methodologies, and there's a lot of different things outside of the core doctrine of salvation. We want to keep that the same. But outside of that, we want to give churches like SSI the freedom to figure out how they can meet the needs of their community. And that will look the way it looks in their context, right? From mission groups to Sunday services, whatever that may be. But we've already fostered that type of environment because we've tried many, many different things here at the Path. And different ways to connect with people, and we've grown in different things, in different things that we believe, and that we transition, how we treat people. I mean, all types of things. You always want to be growing and evolving as you grow in your relationship with God, as we do that together. So those were the things. We want to make sure that we don't undermine each other's ministries in any way, that we're not territorial in any way. It's going to be its own entity, and they're going to be making disciples, all types of people, okay? So what does that mean? That when somebody comes to the Path and they want to get connected with a ministry in Sandy Springs, man, we're going to tell them about SSI. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's normal, right? At the same time, we may have a mission group that still wants to be part of the Path and meet in Sandy Springs. That's okay, too. We may have college students. They may have a college ministry at the AUC one day. Like, we don't want to be territorial. They're their own entity. They're going to build their own church. We want what's best for the person. And really, in those situations, we want to set the person up to do the best that they can do spiritually and let them decide what's going to be best for them. Does that make sense on not being territorial? We've experienced the other side of that. It is not fun. Okay? So we want to make sure that that is the spirit, and just healthy one another relationships between our leaders. We want to make sure we have that. We met together as a leadership team of the Path and leadership team of SSI. We've been in communications. We've been sharing information back and forth, emails back and forth, working together already to get to this point and sharing about the things that are important on each side. But really, we wanted to come into this partnership, as Jazz said, to say, hey, how can we best serve you? So, Mike.
Thank you, Angel. First of all, let's encourage these brothers if you've never started a church before, this is a noble attempt. And it's going to be a lot of work. And what I'm asking the members who are going to do, and I'm asking the members who are staying to do, is remember we have to keep a spirit of unity. One of the things about human nature, we gravitate towards the negative. We always easily assume the worst. And that's just what human beings do. It's all the way back, and you can study it out in the book of Joshua, chapter 22. You had the Israelites fighting together. Then the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they were going back home. But before they went home, they built an altar. And the Israelites who were on one side of the Jordan said, oh, they are worshiping false gods. And the ones who had built the altar said, we're simply building this as a reminder to you all not to disfellowship our descendants. And everybody was upset, and they're about to go fight again until they had communication. So the key, and you know, my wife and I, we've done this a long, long time. We've been on both sides of the communication. The good communication, the bad communication. Is no fun when your ministry is being undermined. So what I'm asking the members who go, you will be under the leadership of these gentlemen. These are your ministry leaders. I ask you to support them. For the members who are remaining in the path, if anybody comes with issues, you got to send them back, and vice versa, because Matthew 18 is crucial. And I've seen fellowships torn apart because people refuse to do Matthew 18 and just talk it out. And as Angel alluded to, as long as you're not teaching false doctrine about salvation, you got to figure it out. And I trust these gentlemen are going to ultimately teach the truth about salvation. The goal is for as many people as possible to make it to heaven. So as an eldership, we fully support Sandy Springs Initiative, and I'm just asking members, let's keep loving each other, because the goal is to have churches spread all over the city where people have genuine love and fellowship for one another. Can we try to just get along? If we can do that, trust me, that's 75% of the battle. When Christians start fighting Christians, everybody's discouraged. So let's just get along and love each other.
Thank you there, Brother Mike. So to kind of go through what the partnership between SSI and the Path will look like, here are some practical things that we've come up with. So there will be preaching exchanges where we will ask different preachers, ministers to, talk at our respectful places. There will be, when we look at the elder oversight, we'll be asking the elders to help us when there are challenging issues going on. We've talked about what that process will look like with the elders so they don't feel like we're dumping, a problem on their doorstep and they got to, figure it out. So we will be asking for their help there. We'll continue to have the spirit of getting together on a regular basis for worship service, at least 2 or 3 times a year, a couple of times a year, and then the opportunity to do all the events that we normally do as a church. So all the retreats and the brunches and the breakfasts and so forth and so on. And then our young professional collaborations, where we'll have a couple of our folks that will still continue to partner with the Young Professional Planning Executive Committee to be able to come up with events and do things together to keep that camaraderie moving forward. I'll pass it over to Angel, and he has a little bit to talk about when it comes to finances.
And we want to partner financially. So because of the generosity of this church, we have had special contribution going towards the Vision Fund to create churches that mobilize the next generation for years. Because of the generosity of this church, we've been able to build reserves. We did not set aside a amount of money to give towards SSI when we did our budget for this year, because we just weren't, the church just wasn't there in that process, and we just weren't there to talk about finances yet. And so what they requested was to give a portion for the members, to give a portion of the special contribution to SSI of their, the annual special contribution. And for us, we want those who go and who are members to be totally invested. So we say they don't have to give a portion, they can give it all. And really they can start giving their weekly contribution to SSI as soon as possible as well. Well, Angel, how are you able to do that? How's the path going to handle it? Because there's going to be transition, there's going to be members that are leaving, and so this for the path folks, we've been preparing for this. We've been preparing for this. That's why we have our reserves. And so next year, we can have a better understanding, because we'll know what members moved on and are starting this new church, and then we'll be able to say, okay, as we budget for 2025, what can we expect from our budget? The other piece is God just continues to bless the church financially, and I believe he'll continue to do so, whether it's with events, people renting out the facility, people giving, other organizations matching the giving of the members. I mean, I have zero concern about if the path will be affected negatively through this transition. We want to be sacrificially giving, and I believe wholeheartedly that we can't outgive God even as a church, and he will continue to bless us. So I've seen that in my own personal life and as a church for many, many years. So God has kept us going when we hadn't been supposed to. It's been worse things than launching a church financially, and he's done it. And so I'm confident that he will continue to do so as long as he wants to. And I never know, maybe one day y'all have to help us out a little bit, and maybe. And so that was the way we wanted to do it. We could set aside a amount of money and just say, hey, we'll grant this to you. But we said, you know what, it's better when members feel like, hey, we're all in, time, resources, money, and you can be invested in the new adventure God has called you on. So what we'll do is we're putting together a memorandum of understanding, so we have it in our files, and we can review that annually to see how our partnership is going. And that's something that we do with other partners as well. So, anything else on that then?
Thank you there, Pastor Maldonado. That's mine. So what we'll go through now is our timeline. A lot of times people want to know, where do you need me and when do you need me there? So here we go. So in the month of, now we're in April and May, we are in the process of, let me get my notes, yep. So we're in the process of forming our mission groups. So we'll have geographical mission groups. We will have those ready to kind of roll out by the first week of May. Our next gathering will be the first Saturday in May. So you can put that on your calendar, and we'll have a registration link that will go out via the app we've been using in Subsplash. If you are still thinking about going on the journey with SSI, you are more than welcome to come to any and everything that you would like, so that you can get a feel for what you need to be able to make a decision with you and God. During that process of you figuring that out, you're more than welcome to stay connected to your current mission group that is connected with the path. So we're going to talk about this in blocks. So the month of May to July, we're going to be doing what disciples do. Sharing our life, sharing the gospel, Sandy Springs and our own networks where we all live and play. That's just, there's a relational part of this as well that we'll continue the spirit in. And we'll do some teaching and training on those cultural items that Jazz and I went through as well. When we get to August through December, we will start having soft launches. What does that mean? Basically, we'll have a worship service once a month on Sunday morning. And that will give people that are still interested an idea of like, okay, what is Sunday morning going to be about? I know that is an interest to some people. Once we have one in August, then one in September, at that point, we would like to be able to know, going into October, who is fully committed to the best of our abilities so that the path can know who they can rely on, and then SSI can know who we can rely on. At this time, there will be a couple of links that come up when I finish here. If you are ready to place membership at SSI, there will be a registration link up there for you to do so. That is, I am in, I am going, that's it, boom. I am a member here. Before you do that, we do ask that you have a conversation, if you haven't had one already, with the path leaders, as well as let the Sandy Springs Initiative leader just know. So again, we're in that spirit of what Mike talked about communication, knowing who we can rely on for the different things that we need to be able to do. And so we will continue that through August, September, through those fall months. The meeting location right now that we're looking at is the Sandy Springs Middle School. Now, we're still open and still praying about different locations and venues for us to connect and gather. So if you do have any of those, please let Jazz and myself and the team know so we can dive into those. But right now, we'll be meeting at the Sandy Springs Middle School. Ms. Woodruff is more than welcome to having us there. And with that, I believe that is it. Hold on.
Y'all got any connections that want to give us a building for free? Feel free to let us know. You know, we don't need much space, about this size. But one thing that I will say, and I've talked about repeatedly, one thing I've learned is the reason people don't give is because you don't ask. And I think that's a biblical concept. Like you have not because you ask not. And so I want us to go into this time, this season, faithfully believing that there are people that see the need in Sandy Springs for a group of people to come in and to love them, and faithfully move with the perspective that there's somebody that might actually want to give us a building for a free or reduced cost. And so I just want to put that out there. Is like everybody, even if you're not going, if you know somebody that knows somebody, go ahead and tell them we need a building in North Sandy Springs, preferably. I'm not trying to be in South Sandy Springs. I really want to be in the trenches. All right?
And if you are a PATH member and you want to give a special donation to beyond, please, there's an opportunity to give to that as well. How will this work practically on the PATH church side? Basically, what's going to happen now moving forward is the PATH is housing SSI. So SSI is a church within the church. What does that mean? Once people become members of SSI, they're going to become in a service, but they're basically guests. That's really what it is. Why do we do it like that? Why? Because we want them, like we've been transitioning everybody who serves on Sundays, so on and so forth, the mission group leaders. Why? So that the SSI members can have their full attention set on building this church, because that's what it's going to take. Right? If it's half and half and I'm coming in, I'm still thinking about I gotta lead the host team, or I gotta do this for the path, or I gotta be at this event for the path. It's like, no, there's times they won't be at Sunday service. That's okay. They're gonna be starting their own mission groups, right? And so the best way to understand it is we're gonna be housing a church within the church until they officially launch and start having services every Sunday. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so we're being hospitable and accommodating. It's like an incubator, you know? It's kind of what it's like.
Yeah, so we can go start the questions, and Angel alluded to the hard launch, or the hard launch we're anticipating is January 2025. All right, January 2025. So those are the QR codes up there that Angel talked about. New members form, go on the mission, and then invest in the vision is the giving code that we'll be using. Brother Brown, let's start with the Slido questions. Just so, yeah, they can hear you on the live stream.
I was projecting. You good? Okay. Is there any plans for worship team for SSI? Go on, give it to the worship team.
Considering that we're not going to have hashtag let Ed sing. Yes, there are plans. We are currently vetting a few people. One of the things that we are excited about is, from a financial standpoint, Ed and myself are going to continue to be co-vocational pastors. And so what that means is we're going to continue to do our jobs, which also opens up some opportunities for the revenue to be redirected in a way that allows for us to potentially hire a worship leader. Something that is really near and dear to my heart is, what does it mean to help people connect with God through music? And so there will be a worship team. It will shift in its makeup as we progress. There are people that actually have already communicated interest, and so that's really where we are. Is right now we're collecting some names, having some conversations. I had a really encouraging conversation with a brother, and he's engaged in a church in Alabama, and I shared with him the vision, and he's actually moving back to Atlanta in August. And so there are things like that God has been doing, aligning vision and opportunities. And so the answer, yes, there will be a worship team. Y'all know I love music. If you don't know I love music, I don't know where you been. So yes. What other questions we got, Russ?
All right. Like I said, a couple of you guys answered, but I'll go through them. Why isn't the initiative part of the path?
Why isn't the initiative a part of the path? What I shared earlier is that there is something beautiful and amazing about being able to see a vision come to life from nothing. I think that is a part of our image-bearing quality of being part of God, is seeing something created from nothing. And so practically, the practical reason is when people see the path, they know that is an established church that has been around for a while, and they're like, why do you need my money? In a practical sense, there are a lot of people that are excited about the newness of planting a church. And for us, those of us that have been in the church world for a while, there's a lot that goes into just planting a church. And so we thought that it was really important, given the skill set that Ed and I have, and the ways that we dream and are excited about being able to create. And so that was a big part of it, just the logistics of being able to have an entity in and of itself that can be built out.
All right. A couple of these are kind of the same. Are there elders? Let's start with that. Are there any elders?
No.
Okay.
But again, as we mentioned, we will be asking the elders at the path to help us in different situations.
Okay, so the question was, does the eldership stay the same for both churches?
Well, for the path it will, yes. We don't have elders at the SSI yet.
I'm just reading the questions. All right, I got you.
Oh, were those all though?
No. But
Oh, my bad.
there's a couple of them about elders. So, and then are there any elders coming on the initiative?
No.
All right. Okay. Any consideration for a gradual release?
So I believe that is the gradual release is the soft launch that starts in August. And then we kind of go from one service a month, working our way up, doing that for 4 months. And then the big launch in January.
All right. You already answered about, is there a building in mind? Sandy Springs Middle, right?
Yep, that would be the, if nothing else God brings, that will be our option we run with.
When do mission groups officially transition?
So we will have the Sandy Springs mission groups ready to roll out the first week in May. So if you are still meeting in your current mission group, but you want to be a part of Sandy Springs, the Sandy Springs initiative groups will be ready that first week of May. So that first Wednesday, that's when the transition should happen because we'll have our mission group squared off.
That's it?
She got the plan, her and the Kings. Oh, the question was, is there an actual plan for the Sandy Springs Children's Ministry? Any other question? There you go, my brother. Speak up on it. Thomas said it's a work in progress. Other questions? Are there any questions on the oh, sorry. Yeah, honey.
I don't have a question. I think it's more so kind of clarification on question number 1. And an analogy popped into my head. So Michelle and Christina, grab your tissue. We have seniors. And our students will be graduating, or our children will be graduating, and they're going off on their own. They're still our children. Kennedy and Soleil and Layla will always be able to come home. It's not like, oh, you're going to college, deuces, I'm going to pay for that, and then you're done. I kind of want to make sure that, in my opinion, that is what we're saying. That's what it is, and I don't think it's any less than that. So it's not a matter of Kennedy's going off to college and I'm never going to let her come home and she can't come home and we're not going to converse. It's not like that. That's not what parents do. You know, that's not what God has done for us. He doesn't, you know, give us the option of choice and then when we mess it up, say, okay, I'm done. You stay over there. No, he says, come to me. So just kind of keeping that in mind, I think sometimes it's just the simple analogies, the things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis can kind of help us better understand these big concepts, these big ideas that seem to be, you know, a lot more than we can truly fathom.
She don't just do events, y'all. Any other questions, comments, concerns as we begin to close out?
So to Tasha's point, as Angel mentioned, there's more than one way to plant a church. In the fellowship we come out of, the way has always been region, campus, same name. So that's all that we've ever experienced. And as Angel mentioned, it's all about the leader, the leadership team, what works best for that context, for that leader, for the group of people where you're going to. So my wife, the best, use that, right? It's like the parents sending out the child, you just don't kick them, boop, or the child doesn't have a bad attitude, well, screw you, mom and dad, I don't want nothing to do with you. It's not that. So I don't want us to get so caught up on the fact that it's not the Path Church in Sandy Springs. That's not the spirit, brothers and sisters. Please hear me when I tell y'all. I'm going to try not to get emotional. I've been fighting for 18 months not to let that be a thing. That ain't what we're talking about here.
Oh, you just gonna drop the mic and hand it to me on it. All hearts and minds are clear. Yes.
To Tasha's point, just on our behalf, just transition like there and back in there. Like we've been talking about this a lot. That this process of joining this launch team is it's a big decision to make. And to your point, hey, anybody who goes is always welcome back. Anybody who hasn't gone initially can always go. Like. So that's going to be like a fluid thing. So that's one of the things we've talked about is just some people you think are going to go may not go now. They may go later. They may not go. Some people that, it'll just be back and forth. So I want us to have a lot of grace in that. Let's just communicate a lot about that so we don't get into like the church hopping thing or if I get an attitude somewhere, I'm going to go over here now. And we don't want that. But, later on, there could be other people as things start going that are like, oh, man, I want to go there. Or they move to Sandy Springs, whatever it may be. So let's just keep talking about it.
Mike, you mind coming up and closing us out in prayer? Thank you all for being here. Oh, we got another question?
What ways are the leadership teams working to ensure their unity?
So a lot of it has been in making sure we have a constant flow of conversation. One of the things that we talked about, we met on Friday to talk through this meeting. And one of the things that we even talked about is in the life of many of us who have been around for longer than 10 years, unity may mean a specific thing. And so for us, we talked about how do we continually allow the definition of unity to evolve to meet the needs, because unity does not mean homogeneity. It does not mean sameness. It means how do we continue to work together and keep the flow of communication open to say, hey, like we've had conversations about, hey, we expected one thing and our feelings were hurt, but we talked about it. And so we want to continue to have that. We want to continue to have space and opportunity to be as transparent with one another as possible. And the reason we talked about that memorandum of understanding earlier is because we have something we can come back to over and over again and say, hey, this is what our partnership looks like. Can we make sure both sides are continually holding up our end of the bargain? And so, I hope that answers the question. I think that the best we can say is we're just constantly working to have necessary conversations and to, as Mike alluded to earlier, live out Matthew 18. And just, we're all human. We all have feelings and things that we go through, and as we navigate together, I believe we'll be able to build something God is pleased with. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, let's go to God in prayer. Father and God, we come before you, thanking you so much for this opportunity, God, to worship you today. Thank you, God, for the fellowship. And God, our prayer is no matter where we go, God, what part of the city that we're in, we remember we follow Jesus, and that we remember we're on a mission, and that we love one another. And God, I believe if we can continue to love one another, you will be glorified. Pray you'll be with Sandy Springs and all the planning, preparation that is being done. I pray you'll be with the path, all the planning and preparation that has to be done, God. And most of all, that you will be glorified through this process. We love you, Father. We ask these prayers in your Son's name. Amen.